think is everybody now is trying to look for employees, and we will have an interesting project looking at how do employees think, potential employees think about the company, and how do the company think about what they want to hire. And now I'll give floor to Marija Salijenko on her project about Deloitte.
All right, good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. And today it is my pleasure to share with you the results of my bachelor thesis that is related to employer brand image of Deloitte. So today we're going to take a closer look on the concept of employer brand image, and more specifically, we will apply it to the real life situation of Deloitte example, the Latvian branch of Deloitte. So, employer brand image, what an interesting combination of the words, isn't it? I mean, everybody here is pretty familiar with the concept of consumer brand. It is something that helps to position the company on the market as something that brings profit, right? But when we're talking about the employer brand, it is something a little more complex, as basically it is some sort of a marriage between marketing and human resource management. But the main question is, though, why the company should care about their employer brand image, and why would they be willing to investigate this concept closely and invest money into the development of their employer brand image? Well, the question is very up-to-date and very relevant in terms of the current market situation, which is getting more and more competitive, meaning that the companies tend to have harder times attracting and retaining young talents. And so this is the point where employer brand image becomes very crucial, because it helps not only to attract and retain existing talents, but it also minimizes employee turnover, that way minimizing overall costs associated with hiring and employee substitution. So, employer brand image was widely investigated in recent years, not only for these specific reasons, but also because this concept is quite tricky for one specific reason. Employer brand image consists of two dimensions, which is external brand environment and internal one. And the issue is that when we're talking about internal brand image, it is something that can be controlled and manipulated by the company's management, right? However, when it comes to external brand image, it is only partially controlled by the organization. And here is the place where more and more companies face the same issue over and over again. It turns out that the external perception of the employer brand of the company is far from what the company is striving for. And so today, we're going to take a closer look on Deloitte's example, and we will try to investigate what is the potential gap between brand reality and brand vision. So to do that, I decided to split the entire research into two parts, to discover the brand vision, let's say, in other words, what the company is striving for and aims to achieve, and the company's reality, or in other words, how the company is perceived among its target audience, which are business students in Latvia. So for the first part, brand vision, I conducted a management interview with the Deloitte representatives, and the interview consisted of 5 specific categories, which you can see over here, and which was designed in order to fully investigate what the company is striving for, what is the main goals of the company, and what are the main characteristics that Deloitte is trying to deliver to their target audience. Whereas, as for the brand reality, the online survey was created, and the total sample size of 112 students from 5 different universities was taken into consideration. So let's see what we've got. According to the company's annual report, auditing is a core business of Deloitte. And one of the ideas and, let's say, main prejudices that Deloitte is trying to break is that working for Big Four and working in the auditing industry is boring. So whereas the first question that I asked my population, my target audience, in terms of my respondents was, are you considering auditing as your future career? And so as you can see from the results, roughly 50% of all the students are not interesting, either are not interesting or do not know yet anything about auditing and their future perspective, meaning that we can conclude that students are still not aware that auditing is not something that is boring, and they are not considering that it is something interesting that they would be interested to do in the future. So the next question and the next key finding that I investigated throughout the management interview was that Deloitte is actually focused on specific schools, namely SSE Riga, RTU, and BA. And the next question that I asked my respondents was, are you familiar with Deloitte as an employer? And what was my surprise when it turned out that around 9% of all respondents were not aware of Deloitte of the company in the Latvian market. And the first logical question that came to my mind is how come that target audience of Deloitte is not aware of it as an employer? And so I decided to check whether there is a certain correlation between universities and companies' awareness in the market. And surprise, surprise, those universities which were not targeted by the Deloitte are not aware of the company as an employer in Latvian market, meaning that since Deloitte is not targeting other universities, it basically loses its target audience and potential talents. Moving on to the overall attractiveness of Deloitte. Well, the company positions itself as professional, well-structured, and tough place to work at. So, as you can see from the results, it's somewhat similar to how it is perceived among business students. But now, right now, we're going to more interesting part, which is more specific company's reputation. So, among characteristics and key values of the company, the Deloitte is trying to promote its working environment, that the atmosphere is friendly and supportive, as well as it basically the perfect place for motivated people who are willing to challenge themselves and keep on growing. But when I asked my respondents, how do you consider Deloitte's working environment and how do you assess whether the company provides a variety of tasks and responsibilities, as you can see, more than 50% of all respondents are not aware of the company's intrinsic environment, meaning that even though Deloitte is focused on promoting that, they kind of not well performing in terms of the promotion of their core values. That is why the company should definitely reconsider the way how they communicate and promote their values. And last but not least, I decided to check which characteristics are crucial for our generation and compare it to the ones which are associated with Deloitte. And here is the place where most of the gaps come in. So, as you can see, well, we can talk a lot about we can talk a lot about initial wages and financial bonuses. Of course, I cannot properly assess it since it is sensitive information that is present within the company, and I think our generation is never satisfied with the initial salary that they receive. However, if we will take a closer look at the recruitment process, you can see enormous gap here. And you know, it's kind of not surprising because I personally can say that I have a lot of acquaintances and course mates who have applied to Deloitte, and only after a month they have received an invitation to interview, which they never received reply from. So the main point that I want to stress out is that Deloitte should start with their intrinsic environment. They can control their external brand image only when environment is in a balance, meaning that the company should first of all improve its overall awareness among other business universities, because as I already mentioned during my analysis, some people are not even aware of Deloitte as an employer in the market. Next, since we have already discussed that auditing is the core business of Deloitte, and not so many students are interested in this specific field, Deloitte should definitely focus on promotion auditing in the brand new way. This can be done, for example, by arranging certain challenges and business trainings for students. That way, the company generates win-win situation because that way the company will be able to show the work environment of the companies, promote its core values such as learning, and of course, at the end, they can provide the workplace for the best candidates. That way, they can take the best talents before competitors, which is closely interlinked with my third recommendation. And last but not least, Deloitte should definitely reconsider their recruitment practices because recruitment is all about intrinsic environment, which is definitely should be improved because it's interlinked with the overall external brand perception of Deloitte. So, and as for the referee questions, the first one was related to the promotion of employer branding activities of Deloitte among specific schools. And one of the main suggestions of mine would be, first of all, to investigate their current employees and choose those universities which were the most popular among employees. For example, Deloitte currently employs around 150 employees that are graduates from various schools, not only SSE or BA or RTU, right? So they should investigate from which schools they have graduated and based on the available information, increase the promotion of Deloitte brand among these universities. That way they will increase their target audience and will definitely be able to fight for another talented people. And of course, since the company is not only striving for the people who have certain level of English and a basic accounting knowledge, they should definitely consider those schools who meet appropriate requirements. As it was mentioned during the management interview, it's not only about the knowledge. Deloitte is looking for people with certain mindset, meaning that Deloitte should definitely focus on the schools who possess these skills and values, such as RBS. And last but not least, my personal recommendation for Deloitte would be a careful selection of guest speakers. Since Deloitte emphasized that learning and knowledge is all that matters in the company, when they provide guest speakers, it's basically the face of the company, right? And so I have heard a lot of negative feedback when it turns out that professional from Deloitte comes to university and apparently the presentational skills and the knowledge that they provide to students are not that high and qualitative as it was expected. And as for the next question, are there any differences of employer brand perception among other business fields in which Deloitte operates in, namely tax and consultancy and law? I would say that there is not a big difference for one specific reason. This is a one big company that possesses the same values, that has the same employee value proposition, that has the same work environment since all the departments are closely interlinked with each other. Meaning that basically, despite the fact that the target audience is slightly different, nevertheless, the company shares everything, the same values, the same career prospects, and the same communication channels, meaning that there is no such a big difference between employer brand perception among various business departments and business students. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Maybe questions from Lattelecom? Yeah.
So one of your recommendations was that promote companies' core values and work environment. Yeah. Could you mention at least 1-2 practical suggestions? How would it be done?
Sure. As I already mentioned, it is closely interlinked with the second recommendation, and I think that would be the best tool of how Deloitte can promote it. Creating certain training program for business students where students can work, for example, with auditors and see what they are doing and how it is done in Deloitte. That way, students will be able to see the work environment within the company. They will understand the values and how difficult or not difficult it is for them to work in Deloitte. So I think the training program, which involves current employees and business students, like together work of them, yes, that would be the best suggestion of how the company can promote its values. Because, well, of course we can talk a lot like, yes, we are friendly, we are well structured, we're professional, but when students do not feel it, when it's only theoretical, it doesn't mean that the perception of students will change. That is why some practical tools and channels of interaction should be applied.
Thank you.
Okay, more
More
questions?
questions?
Thank you.
No,